Well, it's a Wednesday filled with bright sparks. Maybe it promises to be even fiery. Welcome to your perfect morning starter right here on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka, blessed amongst men. Hi, guys.
Good morning, Bukola.
I sense anger somewhere this morning. Maybe more from here than from here.
Not anger, just how we're going to respond to this. Good morning, I'm Jeffrey.
I'm Kaido Kikilo. I promise you I'm not angry. Maybe really? I need a little more sleep, but definitely not angry. I'm just watching what's playing out. But Jeffrey, she thinks you're angry.
No, I'm not, because she knows I love football.
Yeah.
Apparently, and the decision by CAF Appeal Committee to say, Senegal, we're sorry, but your action was irresponsible. Your action was unacceptable at the finals of the Africa Cup of Nations that held in Morocco. I think the basic rule was that, or in football, is the fact that if you leave the pitch or you stop playing for whatever reason, beyond 10 to 15 minutes, it's as good as you are forfeiting the match. So that is what I believe CAF relied on to make a decision eventually to say Senegal doesn't deserve to be the African champions based on their behavior, and has now given the cup by forfeiture to Morocco, awarding them 3-0, which is what the rule book says as far as this match is concerned. But there are reactions all over the place, for and against. People are saying African football is a joke. People are saying, well, it is what it is. They should have understood this. No matter how angry you were, you should have behaved yourself. So, Kyle and I are debating as to the referee. I think the officiating was horrible to a large extent in the final. Kyle feels it was okay. I don't agree that it was okay, because it is the officiating that now gave that build-up decision. I wish we can get the replay of what eventually was called the penalty. Perhaps it was a penalty, but you know, the multiple forms of decision that led to the eventual decision that escalated to the point where the guys left the pitch. But if we want to follow the rules are the rules. This is just to enforce discipline in football, that no matter how much you disagree with the position of the referee, don't walk out, don't abandon the match, stay, and then the officials of the organizing committee, or like CAF or the governing body, will be able to make a decision on the referee. That's my 2 cents on this matter. But I feel heartbroken for Senegal, because this is joy just taken away, just like that. Sorry, Senegal.
Okay, the smile on my face, I promise you, it's not about this decision. It's just the best response that I can give to what's happening across board. But let's stay with this decision, right? I mean, I'm viewing it in 3 ways: what happened, what is happening now, and what would happen as a result of this decision. We all know what happened. I mean, we all saw that match, that final. Yes, the defender may have pulled, you know, the player, and then it resulted in a penalty. It was VAR, and then the referee called it. The Senegalese players walked out, majority of them. Of course, Mane stayed and called them back, and then the game restarted. Now, on the field of play, Senegal was a better team, largely, right? That's why they scored and eventually won. But in terms of the rules, right, the rules are clear. If you forfeit a match, I mean, you lose 3-0 and all of that. But on the field of play, the referee blew and said, let play continue. And play continued. Senegal won that match fair and square, at least after that. And eventually, we know what happened. I must say that this is what comes out of the lack of leverage, and I'll explain. Now, Morocco is meant to host AFCON, which incidentally should have begun yesterday, 17th of March. But just days before, well, CAF announced that we have to postpone for a number of reasons. Obviously, the elephant in the room is Morocco, because they still have issues with what played out during that match. Even though Morocco has said, well, we're not trying to, you know, poop Senegal's party. We just want to at least want CAF to speak to the rules. But back to my point. We all know that Morocco has some of the best football infrastructure on the continent. So if Morocco is pressuring CAF, they have leverage, guys. they have the leverage. So they can say, well, you want us to keep hosting these matches and you're not treating us fairly. You have to look at this. We don't care if it's 2 months after. We don't care if it's 5 months after. You have to look deep into this. But imagine if other countries had leverage, if we had balance of terror, or in this case, balance of leverage when it comes to football and infrastructure. Take the EU or Europe, for example. If one nation says, well, we don't want to host your tournament, at least one of the 44 other countries in Europe or one of the 20-something other countries in the EU are well and able to host the tournament. So there's a balance of terror, in a manner of speaking, balance of leverage. So I think CAF is suffering from, well, that lack of balance of terror or balance of leverage. So naturally, Morocco has the upper hand and they're able to wield that influence strongly. Now, the bigger question is what happens after this? Would we see African countries boycotting tournaments? Would we see more, well, punishments handed down? And I should just say on the final note, Bukola, I have an idea for FIFA. So if DRC qualifies for the World Cup, once DRC plays the first and second match, FIFA should rule. Say Nigeria, take over. So Nigeria will go and then take up from there. Since this is what CAF wants to do, let us do it for the World Cup. So after DRC, they qualify. If they play the first, second match, rule and say, well, they shouldn't have qualified. Let Nigeria go in and join that tournament, since this is how we want to play the game. Sarcasm here, but Bukola.
Good, a balance of leverage. Well, let me first of all say that I haven't earned the right to weigh in on this matter.
We'll cover you. We'll cover you.
After not having earned my laurels as a journalist, as a sports journalist, but from the little experience on this table in the last couple of years since we launched this program, gleaning from some of the things that have been said by professional football, this decision, Kade, is in bad taste. No matter how much we position to look at some of the elements that you're trying to point us to, you talk about leverage. How does Morocco feel now? How does Morocco feel right now?
The same way Nigeria would have felt
no.
if a rule in favor of
Leave Nigeria out of it. Does Morocco feel good about having been crowned AFCON winners after what transpired on that football pitch? Recall that we had our own DG NSC who said on this program after the match with Morocco, our own match with Morocco, that Senegal learned from Nigeria's experience with that bad taste in refereeing by their own response to their, through their activism by which they secured victory on that match.
And towel stealing on that pitch.
Well. Yes. And I've heard enthusiasts say that, look, they're leveraging their, the pressure on them to host the WAFCON match, and by that they have refused to make a decision on that, and they've been reluctant to do that, and as a result this perhaps is pressure on AFCON, on CAF to make a decision, because there had been a decision prior to this time through which fines were handed out. So has this victory been purchased under the table? And CAF has been known prior to this time through enthusiasts again, not to make big decisions born out of strength of character on big issues like this in the past. And so it looks like CAF is smearing its name in the mud. This is really, really heartbreaking.
I think at the core of this, before we blame CAF and blame everyone, I know this is very bad for African football. Mm-hmm. It will not be seen as enforcing the rules. It will be seen like what you call balance of leverage, or the leverage they have, no matter how you look at it. Because the rule says you cannot leave the pitch beyond 10 to 15 minutes. That's the rule, no matter how angry you are. So let's be clear on the rule. But at the end of the day, it will be seen in very bad taste, as I said to you. But the base of this is the fact that African referees need to step up. It is the horrible officiating that brought us here. We're not saying the European referees and the rest, they don't do their thing, but because we know how they officiate at the World Cup against African countries. However, when you compare both sides, you know that African referees need to step up as referees, because if the officiating with Nigeria did not happen, perhaps, the offensive by the Senegalese wouldn't have happened that led to the decision. So I like to look at it from the origin. what is the trigger point? And it's the poor officiating or perceived bad officiating.
I think that penalty was a penalty.
Concerning
that is not the argument.
I think it was a penalty.
No. That's not the argument. I'm not debating the penalty.
Right.
I'm debating what led to that build-up from us, Morocco versus Nigeria,
right.
And then Senegal said,
the Ghanaian referee,
we will learn from this thing that happened, because it looks like when these North African guys are playing, they want to win at all costs. Look at the embarrassing stealing toil. I'm sure they have a lot of toils in their country now. So, and all the things that had happened, Senegal may have said, we will go on the offensive. So we're going to be on the lookout psychologically, not just football, to fight this battle. And this is where it has landed everyone.
And in reference to the rule that you're referring to, which talks about if they leave the football ground.
You can't leave beyond 10, 15 minutes. Yes, you can't.
I've heard enthusiasts also say that that refers to the ground. And there's a difference between the ground and the pitch. And so if CAF is saying that we're not referred by our decision, we're not making our decision based on performance, but based on the rules, that in itself falls flat in the face, because they didn't leave the ground. They left the pitch, and they returned to the pitch, upon,
It's about timing.
The intervention of one of the players of the team.
I think it's clear. We all know. I mean, there's justice being done, justice being seen to be done. So injustice being done and injustice being seen to be done. It is clear here. But if anything, I think they have learned from politicians here that if you cannot win during the election, you can win in court.
Yeah. Go to court and win your battle by yourself.
This is what's happening.
This is an empty victory for Morocco, by the way, because the court of public opinion overwhelmingly favors Senegal, not just out of sentiment, but also out of appreciation for the performance of Senegal on the pitch of play on that day.
For me.
So this is a shame.
Seated here.
Yeah.
By the books, Morocco has won the AFCON. But as a person, Senegal is my champion. I'm sorry.
And that's what it is.
Congratulations, Senegal.
So while we deal with these issues, clearly, this is not the end of it. Absolutely. We're still going to give you a breakdown. But we'll switch and cross over now. Don't forget, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu and his wife, a lot of Nigerian officials, are on a state visit to the UK. That's where we're headed next. Stay with us.
So, historic visit. The last time a Nigerian leader visited, state visit, was in '89 around May under Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida. And now President Bola Tinubu, he's going for this he's already there for this very landmark historic visit to the United Kingdom on the invitation of the monarch himself, King Charles III, the sovereign of the United Kingdom. So there's a lot. Guys, I was looking through the history books. Everything comes in a cycle. There are so many similarities as to what is happening with President Bola Tinubu as to what happened with IBB, the former head of state. So in '84, you remember the Umar Odiko incident where they tried to kidnap him under Muhammadu Buhari's leadership because of corruption. And then that sparked a lot of diplomatic tension. In fact, they said Nigeria violated the sovereignty, abused diplomatic privileges because of how they wanted to take the guy out of the country. And I think some of our diplomats were expelled. And then we also saw just under Shagari's government where import licenses were granted in excess of our foreign earnings, and said, so what happened was that we had in excess of our $30 billion in debt. And then SAP was brought in. So what is SAP? SAP is basically literally what President Bola Tinubu has done. Liberalize trade, let market decide what happens, privatize assets, devalue your currency, or harmonize, as we choose to call it, so they can create jobs or taper inflation, grow the economy. So all of these things had happened prior to the visit of IBB. And of course, IBB had promised that there's a transition that is going to happen that will bring civilian government. So these were some of the diplomatic conversations that led to that visit. So you could say, okay, these are some of the economic reforms we put in place. Also strengthen that broken bilateral relationship that had happened with the Umar Odiko incident, and the promissory note perhaps of transition to democracy. So let's come back to where we are. That happened in '86. SAP happened around '86, '85, '86. The visit was in '87. And now President Tinubu has been there for maybe about 3 years. So the same thing has happened in terms of his economic reform. So we have expectations. I believe that, guys, what the president is going to be presenting will be slightly different from what the former President IBB will be presenting. And that will be top on the list should be issues around national security. The level of insecurity in Nigeria is pretty high and totally unacceptable. We need as much help as possible. The economic reforms, I'm sure, is going to put that on the table as well. Issues around immigration is going to be on the table. Of course, a partnership in our ports and all of that is going to be on the table. So I looked at both relations or both trips and I see similarities. But this is my but. When SAP was implemented, before it was $1, £1. Then it escalated to almost 700% in just a few years. President Bola Tinubu has done the same. And look at what that SAP adjustment has done to us in 2026. So will this reform actually make us better or make us worse? That's a question based on history.
Well, Jeffrey, I think you also have the answer when you consider the immediate outcomes of the economic policies of this administration. We're wondering when the belt tightening will begin to produce results. How soon? Will it be the 4th year of this administration? Will it be the commencement of the 2nd year of this administration? But back home and taking a critical look at this visit, we could first of all, begin to say that, yes, because it's the first in nearly 40 years, and upon the invitation of the monarch in the United Kingdom, perhaps this administration would use it to score a political point, especially against the pressure and scrutiny of the opposition on the performance of this administration. Okay, so perhaps the Tinubu government is doing something right, and of course, it will be an opportunity for Nigeria to market itself before her former colonial masters. And of course, we have traditional ties with the United Kingdom being a former colony, and of course there are reports that this will also be an opportunity for Nigeria to sign, to engage in terms of bilateral relations, and there's a promise of signing a £746 million deal with the United Kingdom for the operation of Nigeria's ports, particularly in Lagos. So there's a lot of promise to come, and I also hope that this will be an opportunity to engage with the government of the United Kingdom over the restriction of policies as far as Nigeria is concerned, immigration policies as far as Nigeria is concerned during this visit, for those policies to be relaxed, especially because Nigerian nationals are the leading, students in the education system in the United Kingdom. And for that reason, some concessions, should be considered. But more importantly, this visit is coming at a time when Nigeria is going through intense, serious national security issues. And there's no possible or plausible explanation that the Nigerian leader will be presenting before the government of Great Britain as being justifiable in its intervention to managing the security situation. Look at the statement of the president in itself. It looks like it falls flat in the face, saying that this is in response to the attack in Borno State of just 2 days ago, that this is, an attempt by criminal elements who have experiencing pressure from the operations of the Nigerian army to cause fear. Now, this is the same government, of the All Progressives Congress that promised that the problem of insecurity will be managed and, in fact, will be dealt with significantly under the Buhari government. But this is where we are. And where is the additional support in terms of military equipment that the president is promising the armed forces that has not been provided in the past? So there really is no headway, no significant headway as far as national security is concerned. And so I'm hoping that, the United Kingdom will provide the much needed scrutiny about Nigeria's intervention in the area of security, and there would be significant partnerships. But will it lead to the end of insecurity in Nigeria? Your answer is perhaps as good as mine to that particular important question, Kayode.
Right, and opinions are divided about the president's trip, the state visit to the UK, as you'd expect. Some think absolutely go. This is a good one. It's not happened in 37 years. Some say, well, do not go. There are other issues to deal with back home. So yes, there is that still playing out right now. But what is the president's itinerary like? Well, this visit largely would be hosted at Windsor Castle, and it will include bilateral meetings, ceremonial events, and engagements with Nigerians in diaspora. Ceremonial welcome would happen just right after the president is received by Prince William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales. There will be a ceremonial welcome on Datchet Road, including the playing of national anthems and a guard inspection. Then our president will proceed in a carriage procession to Windsor Castle, where he will be received by King Charles III and Queen Camilla. The schedule also includes, as you'd expect, a formal reception, a 21-gun salute, and a state luncheon at St. George's Hall. We're going to give you more breakdown of the president's state visit to the UK right here on the show with our UK Bureau Chief, Juliana Lainka, in a moment. So stay with us right here as we, of course, give you all the updates on President Tinubu's state visit.
So we're going to be bringing you up to speed as to what you should be expecting. Guys, what I wanted to mention is that there were 3 things that preceded or was on the table for IBB, which was high debt burden, which was falling prices in crude oil. So all the liberalization issue had to come, weak economy. Now for the president, our own president, I mentioned insecurities on that table. We're also dealing with high debt burden, which is a question I wanted to ask Juliana as to how that conversation will go. Because, you know, most of our debt, I think, is local than foreign, but there could be some help one way or the other if that is going to be on the table, because our debt right now is over $100 billion or so, because if you do the conversion in that sense, and we use about a fourth, that's a quarter of our revenue to be able to service debt, which comes in the region of 15 trillion naira and all of that. So these are the things we'll need to find out beyond, you know, the camaraderie, the excitement, and all of that. Now oil prices has gone up, our production is low, so we're really not getting the import of what we should be enjoying with this windfall. But we'll be back after this moment. Stay with us.
All right, let's run you through the front pages while we keep our eyes on the president's state visit. But what's playing out back home? How are Nigerians speaking to the issues, the big stories, and of course the president's state visit? We start off with the Vanguard newspaper. And how does the Vanguard lead today, Wednesday, March the 18th? Well, there you go. The Maiduguri explosions, which is the biggest story today in Nigeria. Survivors recount ordeals. Service chiefs relocate to Borno. And speaking of the ordeal, you hear one of the victims speaking about hearing a loud sound and my neck started bleeding. The words of the victim. 23 dead, 108 injured in multiple suicide attacks, says Borno Police Command. Terrorists deploying multiple suicide bombers into Maiduguri. That's from the army. So this is a call to the residents to be watchful, to be vigilant, and as I say, report any suspicious movement, any form of suspicion, report to the appropriate authorities. Tinubu condemns attack, asks security chiefs to relocate to Maiduguri, and you see northern governors and Dume condemn attack, call for urgent action. And speaking of the president, this picture is right there on the front page. The president and his wife arrive in UK for a state visit. And that speaks to really the big issues that Nigerians expect the president, the government to speak on. The president, yes, released a statement yesterday in the morning. The service chiefs have been speaking. They have even moved there. So the IGP also there, the new IGP that is visiting the scene. But clearly, this looks like the start of something that we prayed never to experience again, that a lot of people even voted against. That's why majority of Nigerians voted against former President Goodluck Jonathan. it was premised on the terrorism we're witnessing, particularly in northeast Nigeria. So Nigerians voted him out, voted in the APC, late Muhammadu Buhari, and that terror sort of moved from the northeast to the northwest. And we battled that, called banditry or what have you. We battled that for 8 years. And now what we're seeing is back to northeast, still in the northwest, coming to north central, of course, and then the southwest. So the big question is that how much of a progress have we made in this past, well, call it 11 years of the APC government, ever since Nigerians voted overwhelmingly against then President Goodluck Jonathan as a result of insecurity. So these are the issues that need to be resolved. And when I say resolved, I don't mean the posturing of, okay, we're still finding a way to have a conversation with them. Let's see how we can sort these issues out. People want something that is clear enough. They want you to make that decision and be seen to make that decision to stamp out terrorism and banditry, whatever you want to call it, from Nigeria. But that's a big story right there.
And just before we exit it, Kayode, I know that Jeffrey would say that it's exhausting talking about national security against the backdrop of the seemingly unresolvable challenges that we have in that regard. But we must emphasize on the point that it is the basic responsibility of any government. It is the most important part of the social contract between the elected and the electorate, providing security of lives and property. And if we asked anyone in Nigeria, as a matter of fact, outside Nigeria, what is the value of human life in Nigeria against the backdrop of the security challenges that the country has been experiencing in the last decade plus, the answer would be abysmal. And so this is a government that came on the backdrop, that campaigned on the backdrop of its competence and capacity to solve the security challenges of this country when it began campaigning in 2013 before election victory in 2015. And how many years down the line the government has failed to deliver on that promise? And this is not politics, this is stating the facts. We know that the number of deaths that has been recorded in the first quarter of this government has surpassed what was seen in 2025. We can even begin to do the tally. Don't forget that the president also imposed a state of security emergency with a number of measures to that effect. What has the results that we have seen following those measures, introduced by the president, ordering increased recruitment for the police force, for the military, even for the National Forest Guards, for the NSCDC, recalling security operatives deployed for VIP protection. But we've seen absolutely no result in that area. What we're seeing is attacks on military installations and the excuses that the government presents that it is as a result of intense pressure in the Sambisa forest or in the northeast, pushing them out to other states of the federation. Those excuses do not stand in the face of reason, because if indeed the terrorists are facing pressure, how come do they then have that superior firepower to attack military installations, to pick people wholesale, in not just in 1, 2, 3 trickles, but in large numbers, moving them without any deterrence whatsoever? And if we continue to experience insecurity as we so do in this country, then the economic reforms that we're hoping may produce results in the coming maybe years or months, hopefully, will produce absolutely no results, because without security, the economy can really not thrive. And so here is a reminder to this government that it has a chance to summon the political will to solve this problem, especially if allegations to the effect that some members of the administration or some members of the government are complicit in the insecurity challenge that we're having, to deal decisively with it and leave a legacy. If not, it will then be business as usual. Jeffrey.
All right, so, I try to avoid the conversation. I just feel that ideologically we're not aligned. On one hand, some people are having conciliatory approach to these evil spirits in the form of bandits and terrorists, that we should give them a corridor for repentance. I don't agree.
Which we have time and again,
yes,
and it ends up biting us in the butt.
I think it's just a waste of our resources, a waste of our time. No, if you took up arms against the state and kill innocent people as an ideologist, the government has only one job: to fix a date with you and your maker. That's the simple truth. So on one hand, there's might being proposed on some quarters within the system. On the other hand, conciliatory approach is being proposed. So let's choose a struggle so that we end this madness that has crippled us. So I just feel that there's lack of political will to make a final decision. Let's go to the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian newspaper is leading with electricity consumers worry as 16 states falter on decentralization. It's a page 6 read of the Guardian newspaper. And you can see the bomb incident, the picture on the front page. But this is as clear as crystal. I know that one of the things we must appreciate the president for is to say, I think this problem that is always a federal government problem, let's see how we can share the problem and make it in some form of microcosm. Let's distribute and decentralize electricity. Some kind of, I'm seeing some kind of pseudo restructuring from LG autonomy to a development agency, which I feel is just a waste of our time, because it looks like just a proliferation of development agency for the purpose of political convenience. Then the issue of this electricity, having the states control their own, you can generate, you can transmit, you can do literally almost everything. The only thing you can do is to sell to another country, which is the exclusive preserve of the federal government. But we haven't seen significant improvement. I know that a couple of states have signed this thing into law. Some are still in the process. But so if your state is one of the states that have actually signed it into law, and you're seeing the resultant effect of the state being able to carry out this responsibility as much as possible, we would like to know. Guys, for me, in the coming weeks, God willing, I think we will need to focus a lot on the subnationals. We're not saying the federal government is excellent, but sometimes we see what they are trying to do. But the complementary element of the subnational is just not acceptable in terms of security, in terms of things like this, electricity. The government now has record numbers in terms of revenue in Naira terms. What are they using the money for? What exactly are these governors using the money for? At the end of the day, what exactly are they using this money for, if not to serve the people? So it's not just about saying, oh, the president has given us more money now. The president has even boasted to say these governors don't have a reason to go borrow anymore because at least they have some fair amount to deal with from the FAC revenue. It gets to record high. We can't just be hearing record high revenue and we're not seeing record improvement in the services being provided by the government. So this is quite painful to see. And the governors, you can no longer hide under the fact that electricity is controlled by the federal government. Now it's in your hands. So what are you doing differently? The expert in security told us at that time that the president has control, but the governors have command. So all these excuses of there's nothing I can do because I don't control the police. Interesting days, guys.
Absolutely. And a couple of more stories on the front page. Of course, the calf stripping Senegal story is right there, the Borno explosion. And just to situate these issues well, if you've ever been close to any sort of attack, you would understand what this, imagine you're in a market trying to purchase just food items or you're trying to sell, and all of a sudden a bomb explodes just unexpectedly without any form of heads up. So turns your, seemingly normal day upside down. You should have seen the emergency response. It was a chaos, really, with bodies lying all over. Or you were approaching the hospital because one of the bombs exploded just right in front of the hospital, and that happened. So this is an issue we're going to be speaking to and getting you updates on the show today. But that's it with the Guardian newspaper.
Let's head to this Nigeria newspaper now, and of course, We can't talk enough about the challenge of insecurity. That's what's covered on the front page. Multiple bomb blasts cripple Maiduguri's economy. Scores confirmed dead, many injured. VP Shatima curses perpetrators, says no faith condones killing of innocent people. Northern senators demand justice. Troops repel coordinated ISWAP attacks in Borno. And just to add that, it really is not an enviable job that the governor of Borno State has at all. By the way, this attack came while he was in Saudi Arabia, according to reports. And, this is a governor that has, visited the most dangerous places in his campaign against the challenge of insecurity, called on the federal government to provide more support in terms of, equipment and manpower on the ground to tackle insecurity. So it can be very, very exhausting. I wonder, how fatigued Governor Zulum is right now as far as dealing with the challenge of insecurity is concerned. But can government do more? Certainly. Yes, government can do more at this particular point in time. And all of the gains, I believe we spoke to this yesterday, that Borno has made in the last 3 to 5 years with resettlement efforts, with some form of stability, with rebuilding institutions and structures to accommodate the return of people to their homes, especially those who have been displaced, moved out of the country through the border areas and to even other neighboring states. Those gains have now been eroded, despite the fact that this capital, Maiduguri, has shown some form of resilience, in recovery, but those gains are being eroded right now. And this will impact, of course, on the economy of the state, because, as you said, Kayode, there will be a state of fear inevitably as a result of this suicide bomb, because many residents will be wondering, where is the next attack going to come from? Another suicide bomber could just be nearby. And so we require more intervention in Borno State. But there are other stories on the front page of this Nigeria this morning. And Jeffrey, I'm wondering how you'd weigh in on this one. No judge can order lawyer to kneel, says Osigwe, NBA president. Body warns judges over courtroom humiliation. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm not quite sure that there is any punitive sanction in terms of relations between the bar and the bench that requires a lawyer to kneel to explain, a case of a plaintiff or a defendant to the courtroom before the judge. Jeffrey.
He's wrong. It's unacceptable. I think the judge was too excited. The judex, unfortunately, in this case, was, I don't know what was going on through the mind of the judge. There's no sanction that has to do with physical kneeling. If somebody misbehaves in court, there's an instrument of law such as a contempt that you can use to, put the person right. You can even commit a lawyer to prison for a term for contempt if you're able to establish that. So all of this is totally unnecessary. So guys, I want to say this with every sense of responsibility. We have very great judges on our bench. People that, they're not corrupt, they stand their ground, they know the law, and we will always celebrate those ones. But I have also seen judges that I'm asking myself, how did this judge did this one go to school? How did you pass law school? How did you find yourself on the bench? Because I am not learned, I'm lettered, so learned are lawyers. And so sometimes when you see some judgment, you're confused as to this is coming from a judge of a court in Nigeria who went through the entirety of the judicial system. So those are the ones causing embarrassment for the judiciary. And I'm not going to use one brush and paint the entire sector or arm of government because of some, elements that are not a good representation. So, Bukola, the answer is plain and simple. In fact, when I heard about it, I asked the people that were there, I said, I hope the lawyer did not make the mistake of kneeling down. They said, of course not. I'm wondering, how did the judge process in court No judge can even tell me to kneel down, even as you know.
Is the judge a traditional ruler?
I don't understand. What exactly? What was the judge thinking? What are you doing?
If you know litigation lawyers, if you have any litigation lawyer as a friend, I think you should just ask them the things that go on.
It's very embarrassing.
The things you would hear would shock you, and I think you should stretch, because a lot of them carry a lot of baggage around because of what they see in courts, the kinds of things they hear and see in court. It would really shock you. So for some people, while this is really absurd or out of place, they're not shocked because they've seen worse, they've experienced worse. They just can't tell you, because if just ask some of your lawyer friends and tell them, tell me some of the things you have seen in court, and they'll share with you how, I mean, you know, I don't want to go there this morning. This is not the day, but we will get there on the show today. It's part of the things we'll speak to on the show today.
Let's double down on the poor representation. If we call out the police, we call out the members of the National Assembly, we call out the executive, we will call out the judiciary, the people on the bench who are an embarrassment. So that story has now made headlines because the NBA president spoke about it. So it's all over the world right now that a judge who went to school first to study law, went to law school to be able to practice law, was fortunate enough to get to the bench, if that story is true, could not process any other form of sanction than to look at an adult who is a legal practitioner and say, kneel down. What exactly is the problem, Mr. George?
Which is why I said we will get there. We have the man whose case was being heard, who'll join us on the show.
So let them not embarrass our judiciary, please.
Right.
We're not like that.
So don't worry, we'll walk you through step by step. But while we speak to all of the issues happening in Nigeria, it's important for you to also, I mean, have your voices heard. You need to air your own opinion as well. And that's why we have this question for you at this point. The question of the day. Well, President Bola Tinubu is on a state visit, yes, to the UK. There's a whole itinerary lined up. But the big question is, what are your expectations from President Tinubu's state visit to the UK? What are you really expecting from this? I think we've gone past the should he go, should he not go? Yes, we still, I mean, people still have the reservations and all, but he's there right now. So what are your expectations? Absolutely send your message and feedback to the WhatsApp number on your screen. And I promise you we're going to be sharing this with Nigerians in the world.
Just to give you some leads, we've talked about the president itinerary. Amid this trip, he's going to be meeting with the Nigerian community in the United Kingdom. And of course, we mentioned earlier that there is the promise of a £746 million deal with the, for the management of the Nigerian ports here in the country. And so is that the value, that is ideal as one of the fallouts, the gains of this visit? And is it inadequate, amid this visit? Perhaps you want to weigh in on that, about how that will benefit Nigeria economically. So that's a big part of this visit that you may want to react to as you answered that question of the day. But what are your other expectations? We're looking forward to hearing from you.
Yes, we are. So we'll take a moment now. Don't forget the question of the day. Again, what are your expectations from President Bola Tinubu's state visit to the UK? Send your response, your feedback, your expectations, or otherwise, to the WhatsApp number, which you see on your screen during the course of the show. Let's take a moment now. And when we return, we have more for you. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Let's bring in our guest, Mr. Yemi Edun, who is an entrepreneur, joins us from the UK. Mr. Edun, thank you so much for coming on the program.
It's a pleasure.
You look ready for the president. Are you around his entourage? Or I'm just curious. You look great, by the way.
Thank you. We waited 37 years for this, and this is our moment. Nigeria is on the spotlight. The business community is taking advantage of being on the front burner, and it's been, it's been buzzing since last Tuesday when the king hosted the Nigerian diasporans at the St. James's Palace. I was in the room, and it was an opportunity for the UK, to engage.
All right, Ms. Edu. So let's talk about what Nigerians would be expecting and how you would like to respond as to what will be. We've seen the itinerary of the president. We've also seen the expectations in terms of what will be signed, some of the gains that will come out of this visit. So as we speak, for instance, in the era of IBB, when he did that visit in May '89, we're dealing with high debt burden, up to the tune of maybe 30 billion. We're dealing with diplomatic tension. Oil prices were down at that moment. The economy was not doing great, so they had to bring in SAP and all of that. So that was a reporting line as to the conversation that may be able to, generate the interest of the monarch as at then, Queen Elizabeth II. Now it's King Charles III. We're dealing with insecurity. We're dealing with immigration issue. On that end, we're dealing with issues around high debt burden, over 100 billion. I know that is more of local debt in this sense, but a couple of other things that Nigerians are dealing with that I expect the president, some of which may be able to be put on the table to see what help can come from, this visit. But just give us an idea what we should be expecting from your own point of view as a person.
I think for us in England, in the UK, this is just an endorsement of what has been prevalent. The relationship has been strong over decades. Nigeria, there are over 15,000 Nigerian health workers, in areas of tech, in areas of sports, in areas of in culture, Afrobeats. So Nigeria, this is just bringing everything to the spotlight and cementing it with a handshake.
So when you say bring everything to the spotlight and cementing it with a handshake, what does that really mean in terms of gains? Because it sounds to me like we've been doing this, let's show you what we've been doing. That looks like seeking a colonial validation in that sense for those who don't have admiration for the throne because of their history on the African continent. But for the average Nigerian who sees this as visit to the West to see what we can gain and what relationship we can build, what will it be?
No, there's a lot happening. I was in Manchester yesterday. Zenith Bank opened a branch, the first bank outside of London to open in Manchester. That's a Nigerian bank. So people are doing things in their own way. And I would like the activities in Lagos in December. These are organic growth, that has been ongoing for years. Pentecostal churches, there are churches all over the country, and they are reshaping the landscape of the UK. So big Nigerian churches in Dartford has helped grow the development of properties in that area. So I'm more focused on the positive and the fact that we're seeing our president visit the United Kingdom for the first time on a state visit in 37 years. The mall yesterday had the Nigerian and the Union Jack flag being flown. So conversations are being held. And we have to remember that we are the ambassadors. So when this opportunity comes, it gives us an opportunity to showcase ourselves, what we do, who we are, who we truly are, because you don't really get to hear about positives, a lot of positives when it's in relation to Nigeria.
Well, it's great to, see your enthusiasm, and it's infectious from this side of the divide, especially hearing from a representative from the Nigerian community in the United Kingdom. But back home, there are Nigerians who are wondering, what is the value of this benefit to us at home? Is the promised partnership for the management of our ports, is it going to trickle down to us back here? So I'd like you to speak to the potential of this visit between Nigeria and an engagement between Nigeria and the United Kingdom for a country like Nigeria, which is Africa's largest consumer, potentially, well, maybe debatably, especially in the area of tech, in the area of crypto. What are the opportunities for partnerships and investment, especially from the Nigerian community, the big investors, to bring more of those deals back home as a result of this engagement with the Nigerian leader?
Thank you. Now, you have to understand that there's a lot of realignment in the world order. Britain is looking at the Commonwealth as a medium to gain a bit of the pie in the world economy. This is a time for Nigeria to negotiate its way and get more. I've been in meetings, about 10 meetings in the last 1 week. We are on the table, we are in the room, we are having the engagement. Every country has its challenges. I just want to encourage our folks back home that we can deal with our issues back home, but when we are here, we negotiate the best for our nation. And there's no better person to do that than the president of the country. So there are issues, all countries have issues, but this is an opportunity to be in the room, to be on the table. And, for instance, we have over 15,000 medical officials. I've advocated that a portion of their tax should go back to their alumni, to give students scholarship. This is the opportunity we have to talk to power. And I don't want us to look at it as just a photo op. There are about 3 or 4 state visits in a year. Nigeria is privileged to have one this year.
Right. Just quickly, as we wind down, perspective matters, right? So there's a perspective you'll have when you're here, experiencing, the different issues, and there's a perspective that you have based on the fact that you're there and you probably interface with people back home. So I'm curious to know your perspective or how you're internalizing the things playing out, whether it's the economy, security, back home, that is, from where you sit.
The scorecard, obviously it's a downer when you're talking of security. I think the economy is opening up. A lot is happening. 37 years ago, Nigeria had no bank representation in London. Now we have 7. What that does for trade, you can't quantify it. I can pick up a phone and speak to someone who understands the cultural nuance. Let me give you one example, just one example. There was a big show by a Nigerian artist in London. No UK bank would ever fund a UK show. It was a big show. I spoke to one of our banks, and they advanced the money, and it was paid back. So a new product was generated just from the fact that we have representation in the City of London. There are so many areas, insurance, SMEs. There are so many Nigerians that have relocated or immigrated to the UK, sending money back. But I don't want us to look at the gains as just remittance. There is so much more. Intellectual property. I was in Unilag 2 weeks ago to speak to the 100-level students under a program called EBIC. So we are giving back in different ways. And the long-standing relationship with Britain should be encouraged rather than knocked down.
All right, Mr. Edu, we will be looking out for the gains of this particular visit. At least we can quickly talk about the Bonga field developed by SNEPCO, which is a UK company. We can go on to service providers, healthcare, oil and gas and all. I know the size of our trade is in the region of between 9 to 11 billion pounds within the period we have, although we import more. But at least there's a fair relation, and let's see how we can consolidate most. Thank you so much, Mr. Yemi Edu, who is an author and entrepreneur. Thank you for coming on the program.
Pleasure.
We'll take a break, and when we come back, Sowore will be joining us in just a moment. Stay with us.
All right, just before we get into our next segment, let us show you yet again our question of the day. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu is on a state visit to the UK, and we're asking, what are your expectations from the president's state visits? So let us know. Send your feedback to our WhatsApp number, which is just right there on your screen. What are your expectations from President Tinubu's visit to the UK? We're now joined on the program by former presidential candidate of AAC, Mr. Sowore. He's live with us from our Abuja studio. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Very good morning to you.
I think it's only fitting to start with your own response to the question of the day. What are your expectations, Mr. Sowore, or perhaps a lack of it, from President Bola Tinubu's state visit to the UK?
None. It's an excursion, and I don't think it's going to add any value to the current situation in Nigeria. My expectation would have been for this particular state visit to be cancelled and for the president to have moved as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces to Maiduguri, where the insurgency led by Boko Haram has taken a different turn. I do not expect that anything will come out of it other than the fanfare. It's just a colonial servant meeting, going back to his colonial master after he claimed that they've gained independence, nothing more.
So with all the gains, so for instance, Mr. Sowore, they've talked about some investment that will be coming into our ports to upscale activities within the port and perhaps expand the activities of the port in, I think, Tinkan and two of the ports in Lagos. Plus other relationship that perhaps will be strengthened. We have a size of relationship that is in the region of maybe in excess of 9 to 10 billion pounds in that sense. So the argument is that this is important as far as having a seat on the table. We even have the Bonga field that's working on being developed. The FID, I think, almost completed or being completed. So we should be expecting exploitation, say, in the region in maybe 2027. And that will add another 150,000 barrels of crude to the ones we're struggling with, annualized 1.4, 1.5, or 1.4 in this sense. So doesn't it mean something, as much as we cannot discountenance some failures in terms of national security?
No, you see, what you've actually stated is that Nigeria has got a lot more to offer to the UK than the UK has to offer Nigeria. If Nigeria had been properly governed over these years, our economy would probably be competing or bigger than that of the United Kingdom by now. Till tomorrow, most of their companies are making the biggest amount of profit from Nigeria. Shell, Royal Dutch Shell, which has a very prominent UK presence, is making billions from Nigeria. They're still doing that. So you don't need to travel to the UK if your country is working to go and sign agreements that could be signed by, the councillor of a local government or even the finance minister or, the minister in charge of investment. What I'm saying is that, telling these stories over and over again is kind of tiresome. We heard them in 1989 when Buhari went and Babangida went there. Oh, he's going to sign agreements. We're going to buy tanks. As if you need to travel to the UK to buy tanks. And where are those tanks today? Where is the prosperity that was promised in 1989? So you are back in 2026, to put on your Christmas dress and go and kneel before the king or queen just so that you can get investment. If you have it right, investors will come to your country. You don't need to travel. I'm not discountenancing the fact that You know, we can have relationship with countries and have some of this fanfare. But what I dislike, you know, is the dishonesty around the fact that this is going to be the reason why Nigeria will prosper. No, it's not. These visits are no more than excursions, diplomatic excursions, and perhaps, you know, the president's way of also seeing his doctors. It's not traveled in about a month. So I'm just saying, beyond the fanfare you're seeing on TV, and it doesn't bring anything to Nigeria that Nigeria cannot get or should not have. So that's the point I'm making. And we're just deceiving ourselves all the time by saying each time we travel. I challenged them the last time I think I was on this show to tell you a single dime that they have brought from their, you know, these foreign tours, other than just burning, you know, the fuel in the air with our aircraft, you know, and the cost of these travels far more at the end outweigh whatever will come from the so-called investments and that they claim are going to happen. So that's just what I know, and it has been the story of Nigeria. We don't question these things. Like, why would the travel of the president be couched as something that will bring investment? It's not going to bring any investment. This is just to go and waste money, time, energy, and to go and bow to, you know, on the altars of the fallen colonial gods in the UK.
Well, we hope that we could return to this table to say that indeed the visit brought in some investment, but we'll keep our eyes close to that process and see how it turns out, especially for Nigerians back home.
So let me tell you, sometimes some of these are musicians who go and perform in the UK. They bring in more money into Nigeria than when the president travels to the UK or anywhere. We lose money when you send these guys over. All of them are going to go, huge delegation. They're going to stay in five-star hotels, you know, incur debts, you know, expenses. Monies that Nigeria don't have is what's going to get wasted, not any investment. There's no investment that's coming from this trip that we can't get even if we don't leave.
Yep. I was going to ask if that is verifiable, but I don't want to spend time on that. There's so many areas to touch, Mr. Sowore. Starting with the case in court for which you're being tried for cybercrime. We waited on it earlier on, but because you were in court, perhaps you want to give us an update, not necessarily speaking to the substance of the case, but tell us what transpired that may have caused the judge to ask your lead counsel in that case to kneel, a matter that is a thing that is unknown to relations between the bar and the bench.
Yeah, I was in the dark, and I must tell you that I was shocked. I've never, you know, I've been in courts a lot. I've been in courts in the U.S., been in courts in Nigeria, and I've witnessed court trials online and on TV before. I've never seen what transpired on that day between that judge and our lead lawyer, a very vibrant, young lawyer, barrister Abubakar Marshall Abubakar. So he was making a point, that was our lawyer, that he wants to properly cross-examine the DSS witness who apparently didn't want to be helpful. He was brought in as the only witness, and he was asking questions, and so we had a litany of questions, and the judge kept interrupting him. At a point, the judge first made a comment, an opinion that I thought could have even ended the case. He said, well, I just want to warn you, if you over cross-examine this witness, you will lose your case. And I've never heard that before, that proper cross-examination of a witness will make you lose a case. So, but Abubakar, being a very thorough and tenacious lawyer, kept at it and said, my lord, you have to give me the chance to complete my cross-examination because it's very key to this question. At the point he got emotional, I said, my lord, you guys are planning in this kangaroo process to jail Sowore, and the future of this country relies on people like him. And the judge took umbrage at that. And after a while, we had an argument over adjournments. And you know, I stood up, even in court, I spoke to the judge and said, Lord, you know that elections are coming, May. And you can't just give us an abrupt adjournment. We need time to prepare for this trial. You have to take into consideration the political calendar of the country. And he said, no, he doesn't care. And Abubakar stood and said, please, we need a date that gives us enough time to prepare for a no-case submission. And the judge insisted on April 13th. That was the point at which Abubakar spoke again to him and said, my lord, this is unfair. We need adequate time to prepare to respond. Because we knew what they were up to. They want to quickly rush the case. By the way, they had told us that they were bringing in Reno Omokri as a witness to the federal government. But suddenly they decided that they're not bringing any more witnesses. So we needed time to prepare, and that was the point at which the judge said, well, I told you to stop this cross-examination, and you're not stopping. You're getting on my nerves. You should come over here and kneel down in front of me. And that's, of course, the lawyer didn't even flinch. He said under his breath, he said, my lord, asking me to come and kneel down before you for contempt of court is unknown to law. And I think it dawned on the judge at that point that, of course, there were other lawyers who were pleading as usual. You know, lawyers always say that they're pleased with whatever judges say, even when the judge is wrong. It's their language. And then the judge, upon realizing that he actually messed up, rose and left the courtroom abruptly, having adjourned the case till April 13. That's what happened.
Well, the NBA has weighed in on it. We hope that the NJC will also weigh in on it in some form or measure. But you mentioned elections when you were talking, and would like to draw out what could be the benefit of, you know, that part of your work as an activist. This is just one out of many cases. By the way, the prior one to this one, you have won against the former Inspector General of Police. Your activism has produced results in the area of end bad governance. We've seen you actively work for the people of Makoko, just to mention a few. But we're wondering why your activism has not produced results in the area of elections, and what difference that would make, for instance, if we had partnerships between the AAC and perhaps other political parties that could produce viable opposition in the National Assembly, for instance, or even in some state assemblies, whereby the feet of the ruling party will be put to fire and there will be results in the area of accountability and perhaps some form of dividend of democracy for the people. Are you putting more attention on activism in the area of defense of human rights and less in the area of your politicking?
No, the activism that you've always identified me with is such that the country can get better at the initial stages. But it got to a point where it is beyond just getting better. We can't get better if we don't get rid of certain practices, if we don't get rid of certain political tendencies or political people. I'm not saying physical getting rid of them. I'm talking about their tendencies, their prebendalism, and the fact that they have nothing to offer. That's why I was radically involved in seeking for a revolution since 2019. When people talk about election, I have stated it, we participate in elections not because we know that elections by themselves can resolve Nigeria's problem, but elections are opportunities for people's eyes to open to the fact that maybe elections don't work either. But because I'm a my activism started as a pro-democracy and human rights activist, so you would understand that I load higher on the defense of human rights. But what is politics supposed to be about in general? Is it not supposed to defend human rights, social, economic, and physical security of the people, and the integrity of your country, your culture, your language, providing welfare for the people? That's what politics is all about. But when we talk about politics in Nigeria, people even forget the definition of politics, the textbook definition. We only think of politics in the realm of how to grab election ballot boxes, beat and kill people, and then swear in people who did not win who didn't win these elections. So until these elections really happen, democratic elections, you can't have democratic development, and you cannot have real people participate and win elections when you don't organize elections the way they're supposed to be organized. And this is what I have persistently told those of you who asked me this question. There's no difference between fighting for human rights and running for office. In fact, in running for office, you are there to advance administratively the rights of people to get what they need. That is what running for office ought to be. So our participation is not limited to just running for elections. And I've stated this to many people in the media over time, that my involvement in politics is not for the election calendar. It is for the greater good, a higher goal, and an opportunity for Nigerians to see the difference between what I stand for and what their current conditions situation is in the country. So I can't come here and keep lamenting that we didn't win elections when you and I know that we are not organizing elections as they should be organized. We just last time talked about the Electoral Act, where we took one step forward and we're taking 10 steps backward. So how do you expect results to reflect the will of the people when you deny the people the transparency to even see the results of the election in which they participated as soon as it should have been done, which is the global best practice right now?
Mr. Sowore, I know that some Nigerians share that sense of despondency within the establishment and the system to say it looks like a hopeless situation. And that's why we're warning the APC now who are in power. 31 state governors, PDP has been here before, but not as much as 31, 28 in 2007. And now PDP is left with literally maybe 1 or 2 governors. So it's in cycles, like it comes full cycle. Where we're going to with the question is, not winning elective position without discountenancing the fact that, or with respect to the fact that people are concerned about the electoral process itself. I feel that the AAC, for instance, which you are at the vanguard, given what you've done on the streets and the results you produce from the streets, is also denying Nigerians the opportunity to have a solid opposition, say, in the National Assembly that will make, even if you're not as many as they are, you may be as few as 20, 25 or so, say in the House of Reps or in the Senate. But just, I'm saying this with reference to what the EFF does in the South African Parliament. We have the ANC, the DA, and MK, and now the EFF. But you know that when you go to the bench, when you go to the direction of the EFF, you're ready for some engagement, and you're not going to pass through easily, even if you have the numbers. That is where we're coming to say, how can the AFC transit from advocacy on the streets and activism to actively getting into elective office as soon as possible so that we'll get some formidable opposition?
Well, we cannot predict that, because you have to understand that you can't jump the hoop of electoral malfeasance with, first. You have to discuss it. It's important that we discuss how people get elected into office. And when you see us on the street, we are the ones advancing the argument and advocacy and even the struggle for transparent elections. Because we know that the moment we have transparent elections, the moment people's votes count in this country, so many of these people that you parade as political strategists to win elections cannot even win the elections in their own households. That is why we're on the street. We are not on the street for the sake of it. We're on the street to ensure that we expand the democratic space wide enough so that people's votes can count. When we get to the point where your votes count, then you can come back and challenge us if we don't win elections. But as long as you don't organize elections, or you rig elections before they happen, or you don't allow public participation in the democratic process, you kill people, you grab ballots, you bribe judges with houses so that they can determine for you election results that you didn't win, then we cannot have this argument and be fair to anybody. So the argument has to start with having democratic elections, transparent elections, free and fair elections, credible elections. until those things are in place, and nobody should come and say, well, you can't get perfect elections. Nobody's asking for perfect elections, but we're having for elections, not selections. That's what we're asking for.
I'm looking through your manifesto. I mean, a lot of people view you as left-wing in that sense, and your manifesto, which I doubt a lot of people may have read, because largely people just want to see you on campaign ground, dancing, speaking and doing what we've seen over time. Perhaps the next election will change that. But back to your manifesto, I see the breakdown, the different pillars that you've put forward. Pillar 1 is security, stop the bleeding, address root causes of active security concerns, justice, public accountability, succor for victims, then green economy, goes on and on. Well, I encourage people who want to support your party to take a look at that. But I see here that you say that the AAC is an anti-imperialist, Pan-African, eco-socialist party committed to the struggle for the total liberation of the Nigerian people. And I'd like you to break that down, right? Because Nigerians have tried all sorts. Tried military, we've tried PDP, the APC, a lot of things have been tried, and I don't know how well this will resonate with them, right? So maybe break it down further, operationalize it for Nigerians to compare what they have now, what you're offering. And I wonder how long more you give Nigerians before they begin to fully resonate with you.
Well, you know, I don't have any crystal ball to look at how long they will catch up. I just know that we don't have much time left. As Nigerians, we're already under siege. The country is going to be leveled down if you continue the trajectory that we are going now. And this one is not a doom prediction. It is a reality that is facing everybody in terms of security, hunger, unemployment, and the general condition of the people. But to break down what we mean by anti-imperialism, maybe for those of you who need a proper breakdown of it, is that we want a country that is governed by ourselves and not driven by people who believe that we are subservient to them. One of the examples is Donald Trump, who woke up one day and just decided that, you know, I'm looking for a place to bomb on Christmas Day, and he decides to bomb Nigeria. That is some level of, you know, neocon level imperialism, the one that imposes upon you an economic system that knows will bleed you to death through the structural adjustment program that they've called different names since 1989, SAP, through the World Bank loans that we don't need that are given to people who then steal it and take it back to the West where it came from, or through consultants who take the largest chunk of the loans that we get, and these things don't get here. That is imperialism, you know, economic imperialism. You know, there's also cultural imperialism in which people tell you that your culture is inferior to their own. Their music must be the one that is played on your airwaves. It may not be, you know, as direct as that. Those are the kind of imperialism. But the socialist part of it is that the nation owns its resources and it uses it for its people, such that somebody don't come and lie to you that after you build a power plant, 10 of them, that, you know, you don't deserve to run it as a nation state to the benefit of the people. You give loans, you give grants to third parties that you call entrepreneurs, geniuses, and to run these platforms, and you still go back and pay for, through your nose, to get what you built from the ground up. That is the socialism we are talking about. We are not saying that people should not be entrepreneurs, no, but we're saying that we must be able to regulate and control what comes into our country and what we produce, and that the production of goods and services must belong to the people and not a few who then decide what to pay to people as peanuts, you know, peonage in the production system. So it's an economic system that we are saying must be controlled by the people who are the workers. The people who produce must have the largest control of the economy, not the people who don't go to work, who then call it profits and deny the rest of you what is your own naturally. Your natural resources, your sweat should belong to you, and you should be the ones determining those. And that is what ordinarily should have been democracy. That's why we keep asking every day for, dividends of democracy. How can you have dividend of democracy when you are the only one in the democracy who has to make all the efforts, and the people who don't make any effort control what you get? And that's why we then have what they call stomach infrastructure. During elections, you go and ask people to queue up in Sowore somewhere, and you start dashing granules and peanuts to them. Whereas these people could be wealthy at some levels that would be considered unbelievable today. It is what is happening to the people of Saudi Arabia, even if you don't want to call that, socialism. But even in the U.S., that claims to have a system that is not socialist, they have social welfare programs that even make those of us who are outsiders who have lived there to benefit better than we benefit in our country. So where some of these resources like oil come from. Yes.
Just as a follow-up, this vision of yours then, will it work under the current constitution as we have it? Or you also envision a total change in the constitution? Because obviously you need to build. There's never
a time I ever told anybody that I believe in Nigeria. I don't believe in the Nigerian constitution. It wasn't the constitution. I've said this a zillion times. The constitution of Nigeria was the military version of what they thought they should give to us in 1999. It wasn't the most fraudulent constitution in the world is probably the Nigerian constitution, because it has an opening that says we the people. And nobody participated both in the creation of that constitution, in sanctioning it, and approving it as a constitution. So one of my priorities when we get there will be to put in place a brand new constitution, just like the South Africans did when apartheid was defeated. It doesn't take that long. And that will encompass all of the issues that you've seen here. They did it in Bolivia. These constitutions are not rocket sciences to.
But here's the question, pardon me. So this is the same constitution that you're relying on. We just talked about you being in court, having a lawyer. So this is the same constitution that you're relying on to sort of vindicate yourself. This constitution, you say, empowers you to say certain things. This is the same constitution that your lawyer relied on to say, well, you can't ask me to do that, right? So to what extent, then, do you think this is double speak for those who may be thinking, but you're still relying on it?
It's not double speak, So I'm asking to change a condition that I disagree with, right? Mandela disagreed with the apartheid constitution. He still submitted to it. He was brought to court. He was sent to jail by the constitution. He defended himself based on that grand norm at that time. That is a constitution now doesn't mean it cannot be changed. The reason why it's still a constitution is because we haven't changed it. I am talking about driving the process that will change that constitution. If I could wake up by myself and change the Nigerian constitution, I'll write one overnight and just make it available to everybody to be using. But I don't have that power. That power belongs to the people. And that's why we're working with the people to get to that position where we change those constitutions and anything that is not relevant to our existence and progress. So you cannot blame me for a military constitution that was promulgated into law in 1999. I was not responsible for that. But you can blame me if I continue to live under that constitution when I have an opportunity to change it. That is when the blame can go to me.
I'm wondering, one cannot argue against the potency of ideas, your ideas as contained in your manifesto, because they are not new. They are just not popular against the backdrop of the Nigeria that we have known. But I'm wondering how it would look like an AAC-led government, which is an anti-imperialist in a heterogeneous country like Nigeria, which has the establishment backing the old order. But talk to us about, because you say that until we begin to have democratic elections, things will not change. Are you by that admitting that the AAC cannot get ahead as far as elections are concerned as we approach 2027? The AAC cannot win as many slots as possible in elective positions. And will you be standing for elections in 2027?
Well, let me first answer your question that the backdrop of Nigeria supports imperialism. That's the wrong assertion. It's because Nigerians haven't had the opportunity to change their objective conditions, and that's why Nigerians struggle every day to fight against everything they see is wrong. There is nowhere in the DNA of a Nigerian that they prefer imperialism to liberation, that they prefer colonial masters dictating their economic life, dictating their cultural lives. Nowhere. And Nigerians are fighting north and south against imperialism. The guys in the Niger Delta region who took up arms against oil companies and the Nigerian government for what they did to the environment are anti-imperialism. The guys in the north who are saying they don't want intervention in Nigeria and protest against imperialism. Guys in the southwest who always tell you, as the Yorubas say in their palace, that Aguda Jelabe Gesi, which means that you cannot impose your culture on me, even though I might be tolerant of it. The anti-imperialism. So there's nowhere in our system. But as per your question as to whether in not believing in elections, we do not expect that we will have slots or seats in the next election. No. Our position is that we will force the democratic space open, whether they like it or not, in a revolutionary way. And that's why our party is a revolutionary party. And we are calling on Nigerians that we can make it happen. And we have been around since 2018 as a political party. Just like the ANC had been around since, I think, 1918, and didn't win election in 1994. I'm not in any way insinuating that we can't win election, but I'm saying that for us to discuss winning elections, we must first and foremost have elections first. We must stop the culture of selection. You must stop the culture of people being sworn into office when they don't win elections or they rig elections, and you have professors announce these fake results and you accept them. It is that acceptance of this misnomer that is making you ask the question as to who could win election and could. You're not organizing elections, so you can't win what is not. It's just like going to a football match, and before you get there, the referee has already said the match is over when you are still putting on your jersey. Can you call that a World Cup? That's not what we should be accepting, even in our public discourse. We must reject the culture and practice of not organizing elections, or organizing elections that are not at par with international best practices. That is what we are talking. And the moment we get past that stage, like I said, you can come and ask me if I don't win election. As per what I'm running in the next election, the party, I told you, will have primaries. There's a calendar already out in May. And the party primary winner will be announced to the country. Am I interested in becoming president of Nigeria? Yes. How soon? Very soon. Can we make it happen? Absolutely. What does it depend on? You people, Nigerians. And that answers the question about alliances that you asked earlier. Do you want to get into alliances that you can have strong opposition? I'm interested in being opposed to the system, but I'm not interested in joining opposition that is not opposed to the rot and the destruction that has been visited upon this country. I cannot be in opposition with the people whose only agenda, whose manifesto, whose demeanor is to come and loot, destroy, and render this country one of the worst countries in the world. That is not opposition to me. That might be opposition for the sake of opposition or for the nomenclature of opposition. And that's what has been our position. Is there not the solid opposition? The Nigerian people, the oppressed, workers, youth, and unemployed people. People who have been cheated, the weak, and those who are oppressed. That's the opposition we need. That's the solid opposition that we're driving and we want to drive. And we call on Nigerians not to look back and not to waste time in joining it up, because that will open up the country to you in a way that will bring about peace, prosperity, and progress, which is what everybody is looking for right now. But you can't find it with an opposition that is in bed with the ruling party. Just different people with different names.
Yeah, I think you painted an ideal situation, but let's be realistic, because Nigeria apparently is not an ideal situation. And the aspiration you painted, the ambition, is where all of us, literally every consensus Nigerian wants to get to. We want to get to the poll and realize that the man who lost because he couldn't mobilize enough support. The man who won because he could. And the courts will not be making decisions that have been decided on the field. That is the big picture. Now, this is the challenge I have, and I would like you to see how we can fix it. The reason why we're talking about you and the AAC is because without being in government, we can see how you've affected the system and shaking up the establishment. I remember when the End Bad Governance protest by Take It Back movement started, literally the president was meeting with all kinds of groups, perhaps to see what they can do to stop that End Bad Governance. And we know how it ended eventually. We can go on and on with other things you've done. So what we're saying is that there's results we can track as far as this is concerned. We believe, let me speak for myself, I believe that being in elected position can do more in terms of accelerated growth. But your argument is, let's have election first. Now, the process of making sure we have the right election will still be decided by these people that you condemn, you speak about, especially in the National Assembly, given what played out with just one clause, 60, subsection 3 of the Electoral Act, that there was a proviso which a lot of people spoke against, and they say in their wisdom, for whatever reason, they added it up. So how do you want to effect that kind of change being outside? For how long will being outside be favorable to the system? I think that is the simplest way I can put the question.
So the point you raised is the same I've addressed all day long. You had just talked about the National Assembly, and stylistically or stylishly, you're advising that we should go and populate the National Assembly. But you also have forgotten that in 2023, I'm sure you didn't forget, but just to remind you, that a political party in this country mobilized people to the National Assembly. They had candidates, they even won governorship elections. And the question you don't ask yourself is that if you don't have the ideal situation, what happens? You send in people to the National Assembly, the National Assembly or whatever you call it, consumes them. All the Labour Party National Assembly people, where are they today? The Labour Party governor in Abia is Labour Party governor, APC, as in practice. So there's nothing wrong with having an ideal situation. And if ideal situation is proper and acceptable, then the people must embrace it so that they can live ideal lives. Because we've suffered for too long submitting ourselves, subjecting ourselves, and surrendering to a situation you and I describe as not ideal. So when are we going to make the switch? Is the question you should be pushing, is the agenda you should be pushing, is the advocacy you should be pushing to the people, that here is an opportunity which you have testified to, that there are guys that are different. There are guys who are willing to do right by you, that wants to send your children to school, that want to construct roads for you, that want to ensure that your children get jobs, or you have, pension when you're done with, work, or that you can have hospitals to go to, and you know them. Why don't we start now? It's not too late, because we are running out of time on that spectrum that you have decided. I am not one of the people who accept or believe that our political future or our destiny lies in the hands of people who have not done the right thing by the people. I'm not one of those people. I am just calling that we should, wherever you are queuing up on the wrong side, let's join this very long queue that will take us to the promised land, as we like to describe it, and have prosperity, have progress, have peace, have security, have employment in this country, have healthcare, have food. That's not too much to ask for. And that's ideal, and nobody should live outside of the ideal life that we all deserve and desire. And it's here. Let's embrace it.
Well, Mr. Sowore, we have, very short time to the elections. You say you're going to conduct primaries, and we'll see who your candidate is. So there'll still be some time to have these debates on, a proper level with other candidates as well. But we have to thank you so much, Mr. Sowore, the presidential candidate in 2023 of the African Action Congress AAC party. Thank you. I wish you the best.
Thank you for having me.
But from now, we switch gears and head back to the United Kingdom. President Bola Tinubu's state visit is in full swing, and our London bureau chief, Juliana Olainka, joins us in a moment. Stay with us.
Welcome back. What a conversation. But there's more to come as we head to the United Kingdom now for a recap of what seems to be progressing as President Bola Tinubu's state visit to the United Kingdom. And our London Bureau Chief, Juliana Olainka, joins us now. Hello, Juliana. We've seen the President's arrival. We've seen the grand reception of the President and his wife. And we understand that there's going to be a state banquet, but there may be no traditional lunch because the President is a Muslim and he is fasting. But from where you are, your coverage of his activities so far, what can you tell us about the high points of his visit?
Good morning. Good morning from a very bright and sunny United Kingdom, which is quite surprising because if you've looked at the weather recently, it has been cold, but it's very bright. Nigeria has brought the sun out to the United Kingdom, and as you said, the state visit kicks off proper today. So what is going to happen within the next sort of 40 to 45 minutes? We're expecting the airspace to be closed and all of the focus is going to be at Windsor Castle. So just for geography's purpose, I think most people, when you think of the Crown, you think of Buckingham Palace, which is the ceremonial home. But it is Windsor Castle where this event is going to take place, and it all kicks off from about 9 a.m. London time. So what we are expecting is that the Prince and Princess of Wales, Prince William, he will be the first royal that we see with Mr. President and the First Lady. They will be collected and received from the Fairmont Hotel in Windsor. The President arrived at the Fairmont yesterday evening. I'm seeing those pictures there. So that was at Stansted Airport, which is in the east of the United Kingdom. He then drove to Windsor at the Fairmont, so that's where the Prince and Princess will receive him, and then we will see lots of that ceremonial footage. That is where Channels Television will be stationed, so you will be able to see all of the carriages, all of the pomp and ceremony, which will drive through to Windsor Castle. There is a particular area called Datchet Road. That is where we're going to get the symbolism and those pictures that we're all used to seeing, the social media footage that's been flying around showing the Nigerian flag alongside the United Kingdom flag. That is where we're going to see all of the action. And then, of course, he will be greeted by King Charles III and Queen Camilla. So really strong imagery there. There will be a marching band, the Royal Artillery, the Nigerian national anthem, of course, will be played alongside the United Kingdom national anthem. We'll then be seeing His Excellency the President looking at the Royal Guards, the Guards of Honours. They will all be seen. And then, of course, as we say, there's going to be several private receptions between King Charles and President Tinubu. And now, I think what a lot of people want to see is who is going to be at that state banquet. I think when you think of a state visit, it is that white shirt, that white tie, that huge table. Who's going to turn up? Who are going to be those key individuals that Nigeria wants to show to the world? Listen, I'm not underplaying this. This is a huge moment for Nigeria, and not just Nigeria, Africa. If you think about the last state visit that took place in the United Kingdom, it was Donald Trump. Donald Trump was just here a couple of months ago. Donald Trump was at that state banquet. And who's going to be there after them? Nigeria. So this is massive. If you think of the bridge between the continent of Africa and the continent of Europe, it is Nigeria and the UK. So who is going to be seated around that table is going to be incredibly important. From what I've been told, there are about 160 seats. Apparently, only 30 Nigerians have been invited. That's probably a controversial point, but we'll wait and see who's going to be there. So yes, lots going on. Very, very exciting. And for our viewers watching in the UK, or for those who know Britain, the sun's out, which makes a big difference.
Yeah, just before we let you go, we know you have a very busy day. We can talk about the diplomacy, the handshake, the relations. This was done the last time, May 89 under IBB. The circumstances under that we could say is quite similar what is playing out right now. But for those Nigerians who are here, who are not seated in that hall, who are not going to be hosted, like, of course, the Nigerian president is hosted, by extension, we're all hosted. We're more interested in what will come out of this. So what can you highlight beside what has been listed as to what we should be expecting as a fallout of this diplomatic relations on the invitation of King Charles?
It's a good point, and I think that's the most important thing, right? What are we going to get? It's not just dinner and, you know, a Royal Artillery band. We want to see tangible results, and I think those are the conversations. So as to be expected, there have been significant sideline events. I was at about 3 or 4 yesterday. We know it was Commonwealth Week last week. So there's certainly lots of sideline discussions. The NGX are here, the central bank governor is here. We've got at least 6 or 7 ministers here, including the Minister for Trade. Trade is the biggest issue, I would say. That is the biggest area that we want to see a boost. We want to see a boost in trade. We want to see the small to medium-sized enterprises, those aunties and uncles, those selling in Peckham, you know, those selling across the UK. We want to see their goods coming in and out of Nigeria, because we know that the small to medium-sized enterprises are the engine of every economy. It's not just the Dangotes and the Boas. We want access to the market for every Nigerian. That's huge. Secondly, which may not be second to the president, may be first, defense and security. Let's not forget, Nigeria is a former British colony. You know, they owe a lot to Nigeria, and we know that Nigeria was struck on Christmas Day. There was mute from Keir Starmer. So I do believe that there is going to be a lot of conversations surrounding defense, but overall, what we want is, we want there to be an ease in trade. Visas as well, you know, the UK are getting more tough when it comes to who can and cannot come into the country. Are we going to be able to strike a similar deal to what India has been able to get with the United Kingdom, where they are going to make it easier for students, where they are going to make it easier for people to come here? So there's lots on the table, and we don't just want that photo opportunity. We want tangible results.
Indeed, Juliana, you do paint a vivid imagery of, you know, the grandeur that is marking this visit, and your coverage of what is to expect also, you know, raises hope against the skepticism that is marking the visit back home here, and we hope that those gains do come through. London Bureau Chief there, Juliana Olayinka, bringing us up to speed with President Tinubu's historic state visit to the United Kingdom. Of course, we'll touch base again with Juliana in the coming hours as that visit progresses. But let's come back home now. And guess what? We have someone joining us. Jeffrey, over to you.
Cecilia Moroge is our sports anchor and correspondent. You're back again. We woke you.
I wanted to be here when, you know, CAF moved to AFCON as a special present in celebration of the International Women's Day. You know, it was just a few days to the time. But you guys don't like women. It's only when she's here when we get together. But now that CAF has decided,
actually, we don't like women. We love women.
We love
thank you for raising
it. We don't like them. We love them. Surprise,
you can go on. She was making a point.
There's a lot.
I think, there are words I wouldn't want to use on site. I think it's really disgraceful. I can use this, right? I'm qualified to use this. I think it's really disgraceful and disrespectful for, I don't know, yes, they quoted the rule book 84, and if you take it, I've been trying to read the
So you're not talking about the CAF decision on Senegal,
I've been trying to read the rule book. I got a lot of headache overnight trying to understand what this means, this landmark decision. It has never happened before, or trying to look at different scenarios where situations like this have actually happened. I didn't see any. Maybe I'm still finding them, but I don't think there's actually any of all the things I've read about. I don't know why they decided to do this. I don't understand why they decided to do this, but I have this, I don't like conspiracy, but I have this conspiracy theory that just maybe the reason why Morocco refused to host AFCON in March. It could have started yesterday, 17th. Could be they were waiting for this decision. If it's in their favor, they'll host. If it's not in their favor, they wouldn't host.
Canada has given us an answer. It says it's called the balance of leverage. CAF is broke.
Are they really broke? Did you see how much they said they made? The churn out, the amount of money they made
CAF cannot host it in their headquarters. They can't host the tournament in there. They need a country.
Do you know?
Motsepe is from South Africa.
Over the weekend in Cote d'Ivoire, where they played the AFCON final 2023, that stadium hosted French League Cup final for the first time. I mean, the French club came to Africa to play their League Cup final, the women. It was the maiden edition, and it was played in Africa. We had Jennifer Echegine and, of course, Rashida Ajibade, playing for PSG. It was against Lyon. Lyon won by a lone goal. But then, that was a landmark thing. These are some of the things we want to talk about, not an appeal committee literally overturning decision of the disciplinary committee of CAF. Yeah, I understand once you appeal and then, some decisions can be taken. I just felt what will happen in that appeal will be some of the sanctions may be reduced, but not totally overturning the final of a tournament. It's not as if Senegalese walked off the pitch and did not conclude that game. They concluded because they came back and the referee said continue. If the referee had said, okay, they didn't continue, we'll award this to Morocco, and then maybe Senegal make an appeal, and then he's overturned, you will understand. But this is actually landmark.
So what
decision.
does the rule book says? The rule book says, what does it say?
Most of the rule books have been, from the rule book, from what I've read, everything is pertaining to the referee. So usually, I mean, there's really nothing that says when a team walk out, but as long as they continue the game, because it's really confusing. Really, sometimes it can actually bend the rules. When it comes to a situation like this, I think maybe, just maybe, they looked at the particular loophole when you walk off the pitch, the other team will be awarded. But then they came back and they finished
15 minutes is all you have.
So, Cecilia, you were talking about South Africa waiting in the wings.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. What do you think transpired behind closed doors? Let's assume that CAF is broke and Morocco is negotiating. No, so why didn't CAF look? Let's assume now. Why didn't CAF look the way of an alternative situation and bow to pressure, which is why we're here now, to Morocco's balance of leverage?
I think he was trying to paint a scenario, conspiracy theory, and that's what he was trying to paint.
No. I was saying that CAF needs a country to host. Okay. So even if CAF has all the money, they can't come play the match in our HQ. They still need a country, and you can't have tasted Morocco's infrastructure for football, and you now want to go to any other one. Did you see the infrastructure in Morocco?
Okay, that's not. They may not even use that for AFCON. Because I was AFCON last year, and most of the stadiums were like,
step down.
Yeah, like 70% step down from what we saw. So that's how bad it was. Okay, they are preparing for the World Cup, so they understand that since you're preparing for the World Cup, you have to be the best, and this was a test run for them, ahead of 2030 when they'll be hosting the World Cup alongside some other countries that are hosting, Spain, Portugal, and the likes. But I think that this decision, what is actually telling the whole world is the fact that do we really know what we are doing? Like a country won a trophy, and you're not telling them bring it back because the rule book says because you walk off. But then some Moroccan players also left the pitch, and not the whole team that left the pitch. Some Senegalese players were still on the field of play. So now, if you check what was going on while that game was on, when that penalty was given, there was actually fight between fans. Understands the Moroccan fans and the Senegalese fans, and of course the stewards were trying to curtail what was going on when the game was on. So if the game was stopped at that time, and then they go make a boardroom decision, we will understand. But the game actually finished. So that's the point some of us really don't understand. Do we go with the flow, because the Moroccans appeal and say you have to, Rex already rule book 84 that applies to situations like this that was not stated clearly. They finished the game. That's what is important. And this is not the first time we've seen teams walking off the pitch. We've had decisions when it comes to racism and some other aspect of it. But this is actually a different ball game, really, because you're trying to understand. I mean, I saw a tweet from India. I don't know if it's his real X account when he says, you know what, come and get it. So you're now asking them, bring what you've earned. So the decision is actually difficult. People are still waiting for
for a return of the trophy.
People are still, not even that, people are still waiting for the one that NFF appealed concerning DR Congo. And of course, from what came out from the NFF press release last night, it shows that the decision was not in Nigeria's favor, and they said they are going to appeal. But the good news for CAF, for Senegal, is that they said they are going to CAS to appeal. But I think if they go to CAS to appeal this decision, I think the decision will definitely be in their favor, because this is a landmark decision that we haven't seen before.
Let's see how it goes eventually, because they said the rule book says within 10 to 15 minutes. This looks like winning an election at the polling unit, and then a judge upturns it in court. This is a classic case. He's very familiar with Nigerian space, right?
Okay, someone use the word INEC.
We're totally out of time.
But to be fair, I think we can just be happy that maybe something can come out of our own appeal. After DRC plays the first and second match, FIFA will rule and say, Nigeria, take over from DRC.
Do you know how many games DRC played?
Hey, I'm just being absurd. Since we're in the absurd right now. 11
games before they came to play Nigeria. So you're going to rule all that out.
We'll start the World Cup from the round of 16. What's the good God we serve?
Since we're choosing to go this route. Thank you, Cecilia. We now head over to Borno State to get you an update after the suicide bombing incident Monday evening in Maiduguri, the state capital. We're joined by the police PRO Borno State Command, now Kenneth Dasso. Good morning and welcome to the program. Just to get an update, the last we got was 23 people killed by those coordinated attacks in 3 locations across the state capital, 108 injured. Can you speak to the casualty figures now since Monday? What has changed, and what do we know about those responsible for the attack?
Well, good morning. Having me here this following the happen on the March, which was an explosion that happened in. As of now, our casualty rate has increased a little bit to 24 persons who died and about 100 who are still injured and still receiving treatment. Well, as of now, I would say in Borno State, normalcy has restored. Joint security forces are currently undergoing security operations, and investigations are ongoing as the police EOD are still probing the scene of the incidents. May I also intimate you to note that the IGP yesterday paid a visit to Borno State, where he visited the executive governor of Borno State, ably represented by the deputy governor, and also the victims who are in the hospital, where he commiserated with the families of those who lost their lives and those who are still responding to treatment. And also, he also conducted an on-the-scene assessment at where these incidences have happened, and also met with the officers and men of Borno State Police Command, where we also had a meeting to discuss on how other operational effective ways of addressing this issue.
Pardon me, PRO, to come in quickly. There are concerns that there will be more suicide attacks in Maiduguri or other parts of Borno State. What is your assurance to the people regarding this?
Well, for the good states, they know the efforts of the agencies, where we have in the military who have been on serious combat operations with these insurgents in the outskirts of Maiduguri. While for the Maiduguri municipal, we want to assure them that we are on the top gear to ensure that this incident does not happen. We are currently having ongoing sensitization exercise, and the police EOD team, together with other civil police and other security agencies, are having crowd control in any public space and gatherings, so that we don't record these particular incidents. There is heightened security vigilance in Borno State, and members of the public are also aware that we've been sensitizing them, and we've sensitized them more. And we have the police EOD team who are having an ongoing scanning operations every entry of any public space or public gathering.
Right. Well, PRO, we're definitely going to be speaking with you again tomorrow morning for more updates. So I'm sure you will join us to provide updates to the people of Borno and Nigerians at large. But we have to thank you for the update so far, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you for having me.
So let's get to your response and your expectations regarding the president's state visit to the UK. And we'll start with Obande Joy. What is your expectation? Well, Obande Joy from Shagamu, Ogun State says, well, it's quite simple. Negotiate our security. That's quite interesting, right? This shouldn't be treated as a vacation, but an avenue to negotiate our utmost priority, which is security, especially as election times are approaching. Our lives first, nothing beats this.
All right, the next one is from Ibrahim Ado. They said the president's visit to UK should focus on strengthening economic... The president's visit to UK should focus on strengthening economic ties, promoting trade and investment, and addressing security concerns, counter-terrorism, intelligence sharing, military capability building to address domestic and regional challenges.
And we have time for one more, which is from Ayo Motosho Ibadan, who says, what do we expect? President Tinubu's visit to the United Kingdom is part of jamboree kind of visitation. There's no big deal when the largest chunk of people back at home are suffering from many deprivations. Presidency, we hail thee with a question mark.
Ooh, there you go. So keep your responses coming in. Don't forget, this visit continues tomorrow as well. So we'll be sharing your feedback with the president because it's important that he hears what you have to say. But that's where we draw the curtains on the show today. Thank you for watching. I'm Kayode Kikula. Sunrise Daily is up next, so stay with Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka.
And I'm Jeff Rosano. Bye-bye.